Let's now talk about a concept that's closely related to the median, and it is the percentile. Now, the percentile is very widely used in statistics, but there's not a universal definition for it. So we're gonna go with the following definition. So the p percentile is the value such that two conditions are met. The first condition is that at least p% of the observations are less than or equal to the value of the p percentile. And the second condition is that at least 100 minus p% of the observations are greater than or equal to the p percentile, the value of the p percentile. So that's the definition. Now I want to note something. When we talk about the p percentile, p is typically an integer between 1 and 99. In other words, p can take on values such as 1, 2, 3, all the way to 99. So now, how do we actually find the value of any p percentile? So let's get to that. So how to find the p percentile? So we follow a procedure that contains 3 steps. In step 1, you want to arrange your data from smallest to largest. In step 2, you want to calculate an index I, where I is equal to p divided by 100 times n, where n is the number of observations and then p, the value of p comes from the p percentile. Okay. And then depending on what we get in step 2, we're gonna have 2 cases in step 3. So in the first case, if I is not an integer, then what you want to do is you want to round I up to the next whole number. And then the number that you round up to marks the position of the p percentile. So that marks the position of the p percentile in the data set. Now, if I turns out to be an integer, then the p percentile is going to be the average of the ith observation and the I plus 1th observation. In other words, the p percentile is equal to x sub I plus x sub I plus 1 divided by 2. To see how this procedure works in practice, let's look at an example. Let's see how we find the 15th percentile when we have 30 observations. Okay, so example, how to find the 15th percentile when n is equal to 30. So in step 1, you're supposed to arrange your data from smallest to largest. That part is straightforward. So I'm going to jump straight to step number 2. So in step number 2, you want to find the index I, which is going to be equal to p divided by 100 times the number of observations. So p here, we're looking for the 15th percentile. So p is going to be 15. So we have 15 divided by 100 times the number of observations, which is 30. This is going to give you 4.5. So I is not an integer. So if I is not an integer, what are we gonna do? So let's go back to our procedure. We're gonna be in this situation, right, where I is not an integer. If I is not an integer, then you round it up to the next whole number. So then you want to round up to 5. Okay. And the number you round up to is going to mark the position of the p-th percentile. The number you round up to is not the p-th percentile. It is the position of the p-th percentile. So in this case, we round up to 5, and so the 15th percentile is going to be equal to the 5th observation in the data set, which is x sub 5. Now let's try another example. Let's say we want to find the 80th percentile when we have 35 observations. So let's find the index. The index I in this case is going to be equal to p divided by 100 times the number of observations, which is 80 divided by 100 times 35, right? And 80 comes from here. If you do the math here, you're gonna get 28. So now we're in the second case, right, where I is an integer. If I is an integer, then the p percentile is gonna be equal to x sub I plus 1 divided by 2. So in this particular example, the 80th percentile is going to be equal to x sub 28, so the 28th observation in the data set, plus x sub 29, so the 29th observation in the data set, and divided by 2. So what do we do in this video? In this video, we defined the percentile. Then we looked at a procedure, a 3-step procedure to find any p percentile, and then we apply that procedure to a couple of specific problems.